Here we go again. Today, the White House announced their plan for another COVID winter. You can even order a free test from a government website. Never mind the last time some of the tests didn't arrive until spring.
COVID is not over, and obviously we continue to see people getting infected, getting sick. Unfortunately, too many Americans needlessly dying of COVID.
But the White House and its supporters still refuse to talk about where COVID came from. In fact, they don't really seem to want to find out. What both the Trump and Biden administrations did well, where they failed, they don't want to talk about that. Not only do they refuse to talk about it, they refuse to investigate it. That bewilders even the New York Times. 2 decades after the 9/11 inquiry, a similar plan for COVID stalls in Congress. The 9/11 Commission prompted a national reckoning over the September 11th attacks, but some experts fear that the chance to create an independent panel to investigate the pandemic response is slipping away, maybe by design. Today, the House Intel Committee released a Democrat and Republican report, but those are limited and partisan, as you can see. Democratic report, U.S. didn't heed urgent warnings about COVID spread. Republican report, COVID may have been part of a Chinese bioweapons research program. The Times reports, the New York Times reports, the White House just doesn't seem to care. There's been no vocal opposition to the bill to create a commission, an independent commission, but it has been in limbo since it passed the Health Committee in March. It's been 9 months. A victim of inertia, says the New York Times, and lack of White House support. Pearl Harbor killed 2,400. 21 ships, the Pacific Fleet, sunk or damaged. Multiple commissions tackled the hard questions. Who knew what, when? Who missed the warning signs? Why wasn't there better protection of the bases in Hawaii? 9/11, 2,977 victims. An independent, bipartisan, blue ribbon commission looked at everything. Wasn't pleasant, but it was important. The Kennedy assassination, of course, had the Warren Commission. And you think about what happened to COVID-19. 6.7 million lives, 1 million American lives, $15 trillion in economic damage, 25% increase in anxiety, depression, and drug use in America. The list of COVID-19 costs on the American people could go on forever. And yet, no commission. Scott Bolden knows how Washington works, former chair of the D.C. Democratic Party. It's interesting. This passed a Democratic House, and yet the White House shows no interest in it. Why do you think that is?
Well, from a security interest standpoint, they may not be able to publicly say that they have a security interest. All of those examples that you named were either terrorist acts or specific violent acts against the government. Here you had 1 million people pass away, but the Republicans like to think that somehow it's a bioterrorism act, if you will. The Republicans like conspiracies. They live in them all the time, whether they're true or not. The Democrats, they've solved the issue. That is the vaccines that have saved us hospital beds, saving us lives right now, and making us a healthier society. What would you find out? If you found out that it was created in a lab as part of their bioterrorism program, what would you do next with that information?
Well,
you found out it was human interaction that caused it, or it came from an animal. What would you do with that information?
Well, but hold on, Scott. Wouldn't we find out in the initial beginnings, perhaps, whether or not it was taken seriously by the White House or not? What could have been done better? What could have been stockpiled more? How creating more ventilators from General Motors factories could have been done better? And people would have faith in it because it wasn't coming from the House Intel Committee that's inherently partisan. I don't understand why learning from our mistakes and learning from things and trying to get better wouldn't be something everybody be in favor of.
Well, we got rid of Donald Trump, for one. He politicized the mask. He politicized and denied that there was even a pandemic.
The Biden administration was the one that, hold on, Scott. The Biden administration was the one who said, hey, if you get the vaccine, you're not going to get COVID. That didn't turn out to be true either. The point of the matter is everybody made mistakes. Why not have an honest reckoning about them?
I think the honest reckoning is how we can respond better to pandemics, how we can prevent them. Unless you think this was something that was done purposeful, then yeah, you should have a commission. But if you're going to have a commission, then we need to be talking about these reports coming out of the House in regard to what our reaction was. Are we prepared for the future? And one of the big things out of both of those reports is that the Intelligence Committee culturally is not ready for bioterrorism. They certainly should be. So I agree with you there.
That's what a commission would find out, and that's one of the many things that it would have. This is interesting. Adam Schiff, Democratic California, certainly no fan of Donald Trump. We would be moving heaven and earth if we lost 1 million people as a result of some terrorist incident. He's talking about in support of a commission that the whole sort of political spectrum of the American people could have confidence in. I don't get the lack of desire by the White House. It's almost like they're scared of something. Thanks for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to subscribe. Click the red button to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.